It is truth or consequences time.
Part of the circuit is running through this wire arm here. Very simple but effective animation for the layout.
Hello again, this is Mike with Toy Train Tips and Tricks. And in this video, we are talking about types of tubular track. So types of tubular track on Toy Train Tips and Tricks. It's alliteration day. But anyway, I see on different internet forums and message boards and stuff, people who, they open up the attic and they find Grandpa's train set and they find track and they don't know what they have, and they have all kinds of questions about, well, what will run with what do I have, how do I know, what's the difference between O and O27 and O42 and O72, and what is all that stuff about? So let's take a look at the tubular track, which is the most likely track you're going to find in an older train set. Anything made prior to really the year 2000, thereabouts. Anything before that, you're probably going to find tubular track, and it's still out there. It's still abundantly found, and some of it is still manufactured. And so what is it? And let's just take a look at it. So we're going to start with the granddaddy of them all, your regular O track. This is called regular O or standard O, or sometimes O31. Basically, this is the dimensions of track that were first developed when Lionel first started making O gauge trains in 1917. By the way, we call it O gauge. Technically, it is zero gauge. Almost no one calls it that anymore. But prior to the turn of the 20th century, European manufacturers that were making mechanical toys and more toys got together and came up with a standard system of gauges. The distance between the outside rails is the gauge. And they came up with increasing numbers: 0, 1, 2, 3. The higher the number, the wider the gauge. So this is zero gauge, or what we have been calling O gauge now for more than half a century. O gauge track, the gauge is 1 1/4 inches from the outside rail to the outside rail, 1 1/4 inches. It does not matter what scale of train is on it. If it's running on 1 1/4 inch wide track, it is O gauge. So whether it's Lionel, K-Line, Williams, MTH, or Fisher-Price Geotracks, those are all O gauge trains. Wide variety of scales, but O gauge. So your original O gauge track, some of the main characteristics: the height from the base to the top of the rail is about 11/16 of an inch. It's got a large diameter tube. If you look down, it is a slab of steel that is coiled over itself, makes a hollow tube in the middle. That's why we call it tubular track. All metal construction. So 1 1/4 inches wide, 11/16 inches tall, and a straight section is about 10 inches long in most cases. And it doesn't matter whether it's Lionel from the 1990s or American Flyer from before World War II. If it is regular O, it will mate up. Doesn't matter the manufacturer. Regular O, standard O, O31, whatever you want to call it, will mate. Now, where's that number 31 come from? Well, the number 31 comes from, in regular Lionel O, the standard size curve makes a 31-inch diameter circle. Other scales use radius when they're talking about curves, such as HO and scale. They talk about 36-inch radius or 18-inch radius. In O, we talk about diameter. So O31 makes a 31-inch diameter circle, and this was the standard. Although American Flyer was weird, theirs were 40. But Lionel was the big one, and they made 31-inch. So we talk about O31 today. American Flyer stopped making O gauge after World War II. So we talk about Lionel. So that is your standard O. This stuff is still manufactured today. You can find it at Menards. I believe it's still in the Williams catalog as well. Plus, there's tons and tons and tons of old track that is still usable, findable at shows. Now, is 31 the only diameter curve you can find? No. In this type of track, as you see, curves come in a variety of radii, all the way up 072. There might even be some tubular 096 out there. But the bigger the number, the bigger the curve. And so this stuff will accommodate any of the post-war Lionel diesels, steam engines, with the exceptions, and pre-war too, with the exceptions of the true pre-war scale Hudson, the 700E, and the Union Pacific Streamliner from the pre-war period. Those both require a minimum of 072. Any other steamer diesel made from 1945 to about 1995 will run on 031, although they look nicer with the larger diameter. Now, so what's this 027 stuff? Well, starting in the early 1930s, maybe even the late 1920s, the Ives Manufacturing Company, another American toy train maker, came up with a less expensive line. And for that, they made smaller curves, for one thing, which make a 27-inch diameter curve, thus 027. The track is not as tall. Let's compare it side to side. We'll take this back apart. Let's compare the height. And you see the 027 is thinner. It's about 8/16, 7/16, something like that. It's smaller than the regular O, so it's a shorter rail, generally shorter in length, and the curves are tighter, 27-inch. So when the Ives company didn't survive the Depression, at first they were jointly operated by Lionel and American Flyer. American Flyer eventually pulled out. Lionel took over everything, and from that transaction, Lionel got the mechanical reverse unit, the E unit, and they took over the 027 line. In Lionel, it ran under different names in the pre-war period, Winter Lines or Lionel Jr., and in the post-war, they just called it 027. Now, where it gets confusing is 027 also is available in different curve radii. So you can have 027 profile track, but still be 072 curves. But it has the same height, same dimensions as the 027. Just like with the regular O, it doesn't matter the manufacturer. Matter of fact, oh no, that is Lionel. Whether it's Lionel, whether it's Marx, here's Marx, whether it's K-Line, they all fit together. They all work. This has not been manufactured since about 2014 or so, but there's tons of it out on the secondary market, available at shows and on the internet. You shouldn't have any trouble finding 027 track. Now, 027 curves, because they're tighter, it's a little more restrictive. So most O gauge from Lionel, Marx, matter of fact, all Marx will operate on 027. For Lionel, you still have most of your steamers and diesels of the post-war and MPC eras will work, with the exceptions of the Berkshires, the 284s, the NNWJ 484, too big, the large scale Hudsons, whether it's the 773 or the 700E, any of those won't run on 027. And then among your diesels and electrics, the GG1, no go. The Trainmaster also no go on that. But the Jeeps, the F units, the U-boats, they're all fine on 027. Locomotives that are designed to run on 027 will run on O. The gauge is the same. The difference is in the tightness of the curve. There are some differences between turnouts and specialty sections between 027 and different manufacturers, but if you're talking about regular straights and curves, as long as you have the same profile track, they will all mate together. Here's Lionel mating with Marx, and there are a few quirks with the Marx that the ties are in a different place, but other than that, they work fine. So, 027, it's up to you. Whatever you got, stick with it. In a pinch, can you make 027 and O work together? You can. The 027 pins are smaller, so you want to put it in there, make an electrical connection, and shim underneath the 027 to get it to the height of the O. And because it's, again, the same gauge, you can go from one to the other if you need to. It's probably best to stay with the same as much as possible. So I hope that clears up questions a little bit. There is, between what's 027, what's O, what's 042, what's 072. Basically, the O is your gauge, 1 1/4 inches. There's 027 profile, which is thinner, shorter, and a little bit thinner as far as the rail itself is concerned. So it's a little less durable. Tighter curves for smaller spaces. So you are a little bit limited on the equipment that'll run on a true 027 curve. But you can, if you like the track profile, you can get wider radius 027 profile track, and that's what I use on my layout. Even though, other than turnouts, there are no 027 curves, they're all wider radius. I like the look, and you see I've painted this one. I like the look of the smaller rail. It just, to me, looks a little more realistic, but you can do what you want to do. So, 027, trains for this will run on this, trains for this will run on this. In most cases, as long as the locomotive and cars are designed to handle the tighter curves, you are good. All right, so I hope that cleared up some things, for folks, because over more than a century in different manufacturers, terms can change, and for a newbie entering the hobby, it can be quite confusing. So there we have the difference between O and 027, and if you like the video, like it, share it, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and until then, keep the trains running, and we'll catch you next time on Toy Train Tips and Tricks.